Hello, my name is Dr. Andrew McCarthy, and I'm going to be your lecturer for Anthropology 101. And what I'm doing right now is just giving you a brief introduction to the class, introducing myself, and telling you a little bit about what is to be expected in this course. I'm just going to be general here. There's lots more information that will be on the syllabus. And in fact, I want to go through some of these things on the syllabus to be very clear about what the expectations are and how to succeed in this class. But before I do that, I want to first of all introduce myself, and then I want to talk a little bit about the concept of anthropology itself. First of all, as I said, my name is Dr. Andrew McCarthy, but if you communicate with me, I'd prefer it if you just referred to me as Andrew, because I want to create some sort of a communication as equals. Yes, I have experience that I'm bringing to this, and my job is to guide you through this process, but anthropology is, in essence, the study of humans. And you're a human, I'm a human, and we all have our own perspectives and our own ways of looking at things, and we also have our own interests and our own directions that we take things. So anthropology may not be your study, your discipline that you're interested in most. It may not be what you're trying to get a degree in. This may be a requirement for you. But I hope that by the end of this course you will see why anthropology is important. In fact, perhaps one of the most important disciplines you can study. And I hope to be able to highlight how this can be important in your own life, in your own career, in your own pursuit of knowledge, and how your own perspectives can bring information into the study of humans, anthropology. Now, this course is Anthropology 101, which is Introduction to Cultural Anthropology. Now, the book that's being used, which is by Conrad Philip Kotak, which is Anthropology Appreciating Human Diversity, the 17th edition. Now, there are other versions of this, so you should be very careful that it's Anthropology Appreciating Human Diversity and not any other title. It has to be exactly that. So consult the syllabus for the required text. And it should come with, if you purchase it through CSN, it will come with annual editions, Anthropology Reader by Elvio Angeloni, the 40th and 41st editions, and we'll be doing some things with that reader. Now, the reason why I'm highlighting what is in the syllabus, which is written down, and you can read that and reread that, but I want to highlight that because ultimately I understand that you probably want to do well in this course. You wanted to get a good grade. And the course objectives and the course description are not set by me. This is something that by committee with CSN and by administration, they have determined this is what they would like you to get out of this course, which is the course description is an in-depth analysis of culture revealed by world ethnography. Now I'll explain what that means in a moment. And then there are some course objectives, and frankly this is where I derive my testing, and my lesson plan is based on what the objectives that are set to me by committee. So they tell me what I'm supposed to teach you, and that is actually laid out in 5 different points in the syllabus. And so most of what I will talk about is going to be related to those 5 different course objectives, which are what, if you were to bump into somebody on the street and say, you took Anthropology 101, and they will say, oh, well, you took this in America, then you should probably know what anthropology's 4 major subfields are. I would expect you to know that. You will be tested on that, and you should learn that. The other thing about this syllabus is that it relates to, the course objectives relate to cultural anthropology, which is in the title. But the book itself is actually laid out slightly different. And that the book actually covers all of the field of anthropology, not just cultural anthropology. And as we'll see, describe the field of anthropology and its four major subfields means that you'll need to learn a little bit about physical anthropology, linguistic anthropology, and a biological, it was also physical, another word for that, and archaeology, in addition to cultural anthropology. So you'll be asked to learn the whole breadth of the discipline of anthropology and understand how anthropology integrates other forms of knowledge like hard sciences and related humanistic disciplines into understanding humans. Now, the one way to approach this is by taking you back 1,000 years or so. In 1088, the University of Bologna in Italy was the first university to be founded, and that's still in existence, at least. And the word university was invented for this organization, the University of Bologna, and the word college essentially means the same thing. So college, university, and you're at a college studying. So what does that word mean, university or college? It actually just means a coming together of people. It means a collective of students and masters, as they were called in 1088, magisters and studentia. These were people that learned and who knew and would interact with one another. And this is why I want to actually put myself at this in this sort of relationship with you, where I'm not just telling you what you need to know, I'm trying to guide you through the process of learning yourself and contributing to knowledge through your own perspective in your own eyes. And at the end of this course, I'm going to want you to be able to collect data on your own as an anthropologist. So it's not just me playing lip service to you wanting to learn. I want you to, at least on a very basic level, be able to think like an anthropologist at the end of this. Now, the reason why I bring up the University of Bologna is because 1,000 years ago, the library in Bologna had almost everything that Western Europe had written, and even more than that. Everything that was published was in their library. And so you could go tell somebody, go read everything. And you could go read everything. Now, if I were to tell you as an assignment to go read everything that there is written, it would be an impossible task. So over time, over the past 1,000 years, colleges and universities have found that we've been able to do better in terms of understanding by breaking down information into more manageable parts. When the University of Bologna first started, people studied everything as a holistic idea, that knowledge was unitary, knowledge was one thing, that in order to know everything that there was, you need to understand languages, you needed to understand culture, you needed to understand art and literature, you had to understand history and science and philosophy and theology. All of these things were just things that you needed to know, and you were expected to know all of them at once and be able to recycle them in your brain and advance your knowledge further beyond that. And gathering together in a group allowed you to discuss these ideas amongst people that may know a little bit more than you, some that may have some new upcoming ideas that you hadn't thought of before. Now, because we do better if we really focus on something. Like, let's take medicine, for instance. Do you think that your doctor, if you went for some medical procedure, would be the best person that you would go to look for economic advice or financial advice? Probably not. I mean, maybe they do fine with their own finances. But if you wanted advice on your finances, you would go to a financial advisor or a banker or an economist. And this is because there is so much expected in terms of knowing one little focused area that we tend to specialize. And universities have done that as well. So what 1,000 years ago would have been just going to college or university would just mean you do everything at once. You're now taking some sort of a discipline. You're majoring in something, you're going for a degree in a specialized subject. The problem is that knowledge doesn't really work that way. And for something like anthropology, which is trying to understand human beings, that's just a huge, huge question. The word anthropology actually literally means the study of humans. So how can we do that? If I were to say, okay, tell me what is a human? If I were to ask you this question, how would you answer it? Where would you begin? You could say, okay, well, humans are biological creatures. It's true. We're animals. So you could classify it in that way. But is that satisfying? Is that enough? Sure, it's true. And it's one way to look at humans. And in fact, we have a branch, a subdiscipline of anthropology that's called biological or physical anthropology. And our Anthropology 102 that we offer does specifically that. It looks at the biology and physical nature of humans. But it's not enough. We communicate with one another, and there's linguistic anthropology, which is another subfield of anthropology. There's also looking at the past. Where do humans come from? If we want to understand where we are today, we need to look at our past. And archaeology is another subdiscipline that looks at the past of anthropology, of humans. And then there's cultural anthropology, which is what we're focusing on today, which is studying human groups and their variations, both present and past. And these four major subfields fit together. Can't really be taken separately. So I want you to bring up the University of Bologna in your mind from time to time and think, okay, yes, I'm studying this very specific aspect, but how would someone who was just trying to gather knowledge on what humans are bring all of these little data points together and come up with a holistic view? This is one way that we usually describe anthropology, is it's a holistic discipline, that it requires a lot of different specializations to come together to build up a big picture, kind of like a mosaic. And so this actually addresses some of the course objectives, my description that I just gave here, which is that by the end of the course objectives say that you should be able to describe the field of anthropology and its four major subfields. You've just learned those: physical or biological anthropology, archaeology, linguistic anthropology, and cultural anthropology. You should also be able to define the concept of culture. This is probably going to be one of the most challenging aspects of this whole course, because culture is a nebulous concept that actually has a lot of different moving parts, and it varies from place to place and from time to time and from people to people. But the best way to do that is to look at number 3, which is to discuss the basic institutions that comprise culture. Because there are universals that we all have. So humans, as biological creatures, all have to breathe air, we have to drink water, we have to eat food. These are all things that every single person on the planet has to do. But how you do that is defined by group behavior and local environmental factors. And that is what really is where cultural variations come in. And so by breaking down these universal factors, so for instance, in order to survive as a group, we have to have children. But who do you marry and how do you marry? Do you have to get married to have children? How do you raise children? All of these things are cultural variants that derive from a universal, that is having children, but how that happens is variable according to cultures. So you can take children, marriage, families, kinship. All of these aspects are the institutions that comprise culture. And those are universals, but they are found in particular manners around the world, that each culture does it slightly differently, or maybe majorly differently. And from those universals and those particulars, the anthropologist's job is to come up with patterns, to understand the patterns that humans behave in, that this pattern may be a cluster of people over here are behaving in this way, and another cluster of people over here are behaving in another way. And these general patterns are really what we're seeking, because those have explanatory value. We'll come back to these issues again. I know this may be a lot to load on you to begin with. The fourth thing that the course objectives say is to apply anthropological concepts to the comparative examination of diverse cultural values, perspectives, and patterns of behavior. And essentially that's what I just described, is that we want to look at what every human on Earth does, has to do, to eat, sleep, drink, procreate, all these things, and look at the diversity of how humans do that to come up with patterns of behavior. And then finally, all of this is done through a social science perspective, that we take facts and we try to analyze them as scientifically as possible. Now, before you think social science equals not science, because I get that sometimes, we follow the scientific method as best as we can. Because humans don't necessarily aren't things that we can experiment on or put into a laboratory where we can poke and prod and test them like bacteria in a petri dish, it doesn't necessarily function the same way as physics or chemistry or biology does. But it is facts, and we have to build up an argument based on facts, based on observations, hypotheses that we can test, and theories that create a framework for our understanding. So it is scientific. The process that we go through in anthropology is scientific, which makes it more useful for applying in all sorts of scenarios that maybe literature or anecdotes or your own personal perspective might not be adequate. So would you really just accept that my own personal understanding of not swimming in the ocean a half an hour after eating is valid? That's a folk myth, right? What I really want to learn is what actually is the science behind that. So I'd want some testable hypotheses that give me some factual data to go on, and not just some anecdote or some saying or some old tale that's repeated over and over again. So anthropology is trying to understand humans in a systematic, organized, and scientific way. But humans aren't necessarily very well organized, and so this is where anthropologists have to make sense of some very chaotic data. We'll come to, in the second half of this course, we'll come to how anthropologists approach that. But most importantly, science is supposed to look at these concepts in an objective way without putting your conclusions first. So what I don't want you to do is come into anthropology saying, I know what humans are and I understand them perfectly. I want you to say, come like you've flown in from another planet and say, who are these humans that you're talking about, and what can you tell me about them? Okay, let's gather some data, let's analyze them, and let's come up with some rules for the way that they behave. The reason why is because if you want to break out of this biased, preconceived, a priori knowledge to do things like change policies or improve people's situations in life and health, you need to have the facts first, not your opinion. And so science, the science of anthropology, is trying to gather data that eventually, after that data has been gathered, can be analyzed and evaluated for cultural problems, and anthropological concepts can be applied to things like policy. So anthropology has a use. It has a use in almost every aspect of life, including your own. Because, as I said when I started here, you're a human. So if you're in the hospitality industry, who are you being hospitable to? Humans. If you're in the healthcare industry, who are you caring for in the healthcare industry? Humans. If you are a computer scientist, who uses computers? Humans. There is no aspect of your life or career that anthropology cannot enhance. And understanding from an objective perspective can actually improve your life, your health, and your career. So why me? Why am I the leader of this course? Well, I've been studying this for more than 25 years. I moved back to the United States a couple of years ago and started teaching at CSN because I wanted to return to teaching. I had directed research institutes abroad. I've lived in several countries, and a lot of the places and people that we're going to talk about in this course, I have direct knowledge and experience of. I'm also an archaeologist, which is one of the 4 subfields, but I'm an anthropological archaeologist, which means that I use anthropological theories on culture and apply those to past cultures. I worked in the Mediterranean, the Middle East, Europe, and right here in Nevada, where I find myself today. So I also have done a great deal with physical anthropology, and I'm a linguist as well. So the 4 fields of anthropology, I feel confident in leading you through. I'm trying to refrain myself from saying teaching, because what I want you to learn is the book. I want you to get your lessons from the book, and I will help guide you through that. So these videos that I have are going to be my highlighting of what the most important things that you can get from what arguably is a pretty dense textbook on the subject. So combined, what you're reading and what I'm talking about here will really narrow the focus down so you can concentrate on what the most important lessons are to meet these course objectives, which ultimately is what you'll be tested on. So I really hope you enjoy the course. I'm going to enjoy teaching it to you, and so let's get started.